So I have been seeing a lot of people talk about vibe coding lately. And honestly, I get why people are so excited about it. You can literally sit down with an idea, open one of these AI coding tools, explain what you want in normal English, plain English, and within a few minutes, you already have something working. You can build a landing page, you can build a dashboard, you can connect a database, you can add authentication, you can add payments, you can build things that a few years ago would have required you to actually know quite a lot of programming. And now you can get pretty far just by saying, okay, add this feature, move this button, connect this API, fix this error. And that's kind of crazy, especially for people who aren't developers. You can have an idea in the morning, and by the afternoon, you might have something that actually looks like a real product. So I don't really think white coding itself necessarily a bad thing. I think it's actually pretty useful. But I do think that there's a pretty big problem with it that I don't see people talking about enough. And surprisingly, I don't think the biggest problem is the code, because that's usually where this conversation goes, right? People talk about AI generated code being, messy or insecure or full of bugs or just badly structured. And obviously, those things can happen, but bad code can be fixed. You can, refactor the bad code, identify it and refactor it. You can rewrite parts of it. You can add tests. You can clean things up. The much bigger problem, in my opinion, is that vibe coding makes it incredibly easy to build a system that works without, actually understanding why it works. And those are two completely different things. Let's say, for an example, you want to build a small SaaS application. You tell the AI what you want. Okay, I need users to sign up. I need them to log in. I need them to, upload some files. I need to store those files somewhere. I need a dashboard. I need Stripe payments. And the AI starts building all of this for you. You run it, you click sign up, it works. You log in, it works. You upload a file, it works. Stripe checkout opens, that works too. And you are sitting there thinking, wow, I basically just built this entire thing. And technically, you did. The application exists. But there's a difference between knowing what your application does and understanding how your application works. Maybe you know that clicking this button saves something to a database. But do you know which database table? What happens if that request fails halfway through? What happens if the user clicks the button twice? What happens if those two users do something at the same exact time? Do you know how your authentication actually works? Where the session is stored? What data your API is exposing? And you might say, well, I don't really need to know any of that because AI, handles it. And that's fine until something goes wrong. And this is where things get, kind of messy. Let's say one day your users suddenly can't log in. So you go back to the AI and say, hey, login is broken, fix it. The AI changes a few files. You run the app again. Login works. Great. Done. Except maybe what the AI actually did was weaken some security checks. You don't know. Maybe it created a second authentication flow instead of fixing the existing one. You don't know that one. Or maybe it changed the database query in a way that works perfectly right now, but becomes a problem when you have 10,000 users. Again, you don't know that. And then a week later, something else breaks. So you tell AI to fix that too. It changes another file, then another file, then another file. It installs another package. It creates another helper function. It adds another abstraction somewhere, And from the outside, that feels like development. You are making progress. You are, shipping features. You are fixing bugs. But there's a point where you are not really developing the system anymore. You are just negotiating with it. You're basically saying, I don't understand what's happening, but please make the red error message disappear. And I think that can become a really dangerous habit, because one of the most important skills in software development is being able to build a mental model of the system that you are actually working on. You should roughly understand what happens when a request enters your application. You don't need to memorize every single line of code, obviously. Even experienced developers don't know every line of a large code base, but they understand the structure. They understand the important pieces. And most importantly, they know how to go find the answers when they don't understand something. So with vibe coding, it's really easy to skip that entire process because the feedback loop is so fast. Why spend 20 minutes understanding an error when you can copy and paste it into the AI and get a fix in 20 seconds or so? And again, in the short term, that's amazing. It saves you time. But if you do that over and over again, eventually you have hundreds or thousands of little decisions inside your code base that you were never really part of. AI made them, and you accepted them because the application worked. That's the part that I think that actually worries me, because software usually doesn't become difficult when you first build it. Version 1 is normally the easy part. The difficult part comes later. Let's say 6 months later, the requirements change. Now your payment system needs 3 different subscription tiers. Now users need different permissions. Now you need to migrate data. Now the third-party API you used changed their pricing. Now the library you are using has a security vulnerability. Some customers somehow manage to create 400 duplicate records in your database and nobody knows how. This is where software engineering becomes much more than generating code. Because now every decision you made earlier starts to matter. And if those decisions were made by an AI one prompt at a time without you really understanding the overall architecture, you can get yourself into a really weird situation. You start fixing things on top of other fixes. You add workarounds on top of workarounds. And before you know it, you have code that nobody really wants to touch, because every time you change something, something else breaks. By the way, this happens in normal software developments too. Developers have been creating terrible code base long before AI existed, but AI lets you create that complexity much faster. That's the difference. If you're making, a bad decision, bad architectural decision manually, maybe it takes you, 3 or 4 days to build it. Now AI can help you build the same bad decision in, 20 or 40 minutes. So yes, AI makes good developers faster, but also makes bad decisions faster. And I think that's something people need to understand. I think using AI to write code is not the problem. Using AI to avoid understanding your code is the problem. There's a massive difference. If I understand the architecture and I ask AI to implement a feature for me, that's awesome, that's really great. But if I have no idea what the solution should look like and I'm just accepting whatever the AI generates because it happens to run, then I'm not really supervising the AI. I'm just trusting it, and those aren't the same thing. So I think vibe coding is going to be incredibly useful. I think it's going to allow a lot more people to build softwares, and that's genuinely, exciting. But I also think we are going to see a lot of applications over the next few years where somebody built something extremely quickly and it worked really well at first, and then eventually they hit this wall where nobody understands the thing anymore. And that's probably when they are going to realize that the difficult part of software development was never just writing the code.